In this series, I'm making a game based on what you vote for. In the last video, I created this very basic starting area for the game and asked you whether the world outside is a graveyard, castle, space colony, or bug's life. The votes gave a pretty clear decision, but I currently have no way of showing you those results. So I should probably load up Unity and make that possible. Starting with a new project, I created a UI canvas and added some basic fields I can fill in with the results of the vote. I created a script for handling that form and put together the layout for the visualizer itself. With the basic layout complete and all the form linked up in the code, I got this basic visualizer working. I can fill out the votes, and Unity animates the bars to show each result. Once I'd tidied up the visuals, I could load up the script I made in the last video for scraping all the votes from the video comments, chuck those results into the new visualizer, and this is how you voted. You decided that the world outside is a space colony, with that getting 718 votes, followed not so closely by Graveyard with 390. So, time to get started. The first thing I did was adjust the game's camera a little, just getting it a little bit more top down. I then just used a cube to experiment with how big tiles should be in the game. I'll be building the world out of tiles just to make my life a little bit easier. I decided to base the tile layout on an approach by Oscar Stolberg, the developer of tile-based games Bad North and Townscaper. So with that knowledge, I got to work just putting together some really basic ground tile shapes in Blender. My focus for this video will just be on exterior assets and objects to make this start to feel like an alien planet. Using a tile map plugin from the asset store, which I've linked in the description, I then started testing out those tiles in Unity. The shapes all seemed to line up, so I went back to Blender and added an extra layer to each of the tiles as a sort of ground texture, with a bit of a bevel on the edges. With all those tiles done, an extremely basic level layout looked like this. Very bland and blindingly white, but the tile system seems to be working. I then added some basic coloured materials to the scene and a plane for water just to get rid of the filthy default background colour Unity uses. Initially I was basing the colour palette and shapes on this design by ChronoBreak on Twitter, but I'll be moving away from that later in the video. Next, I modelled some very basic rocks in Blender to start adding some details to the scene. Full disclosure, my background is mostly in 2D games, so feel free to laugh at my caveman attempts at 3D modelling. I just about survived the rock modelling and created a slightly bigger level layout to start placing some details. At this point I was pretty happy with how things were looking. The pink was definitely starting to burn my retinas, and despite the partial blindness, the shapes seemed to be coming together. Next, I wanted to create some transitions for different coloured areas of the scene, and I decided the best way to do that would be with decals. These are basically stickers you can place anywhere to add some detail to a surface. I created a small yellow area and started slapping down decals along the seams. Knowing it works, I opened up Affinity and created the first attempt at a transition design. It looked pretty good, but I thought the dots were maybe a bit too small, so I made them larger and created a bunch of variations in both pink and yellow. Adding those pink dots just finished off the transition, and I'm really happy with how this looks. Definitely not Earth-like, but I'm getting more and more exhausted by these colours. So I decided it was time to grow up, move on, and find a palette that suits a space colony a bit more. I went through 8 variations in total before finally settling on this. I thought it looked pretty alien and is still eye-catching without being overly bright or sickly like the original palette. We're not quite done there though, as I wanted to make some alien grass for this planet. I started with this angled 3-prong design with a gradient running from black at the bottom to red at the top. I then created a material for the grass before placing a few of them in the scene. I wasn't sure about the gradient, so I went back and made the grass a solid red. I didn't like that either, this time deciding I don't like either the shape or the solid colour. So I straightened out the grass blades and decided to use a transparent gradient so the base of the grass always matches the surface it's on. I scattered that around the scene and I'm pretty happy with how this looks. Once I'd created a few variations in both red and black and added some larger dark splotches to the ground, the finished scene looked like this. And this is the starting point, a planet for our space colony. The layout will definitely be changing, but now I need you to make the next decision. The colony is a A. Scientific facility, B. Thriving settlement, C, military base, or D, crumbling settlement. Write A, B, C, or D in square brackets as part of your comment, and I'll be tallying up the votes a week after this video goes live. See the video description if you're still not sure how to vote. I'll be running extra polls on Twitter, so follow me at BWDev1 for those. See you in the next one.